Welcome back, everyone. I'm Jason and you're watching Jensen Trains. In today's episode, we're going to be building some boats. We're going to be using kits from Carolina Craftsman Kits. They are laser cut wood kits and I believe they come with up to 14 detail castings. It's a great little kit for the price, and I'm going to be putting together 3 of them to show you that with a little imagination you can take a basic kit and make it look pretty unique. So let's head over to the workbench and get started on it. So here are all the parts that you get in the kit. We'll build the hull in layers. You get 2 different sides. So you have one that is more of maybe a recreational boat, and one that represents more of a working boat. But it's really up to you, whichever one you want to put. Then you get the deck, you get the roof that goes on top of the boat, you get 2 handrails that go the length of the roof, you get the little hatch that goes towards the front, and you have the front window. Now it also comes with a little boat. That also comes with 2 little oars and 2 little bench seats. This is the prototype that I built, and it's going to be awful close to this. Now the kit will come with 2 lobster traps. You'll get 4 tires, 2 for each side. You'll get the little boat that you have to assemble that goes on the roof. It comes with 4 cleats, 2 for each side. You'll get 2 life rings. And you'll get 2 barrels. Now, they won't be steel drums like these. They'll be wood barrels. And, of course, the figure is not included. But it'll look very similar to this. So we'll start with the base. And that is the flat piece that you see here. Then we're going to take the piece that has the number 2 on it, and we're going to cut out the center sections. And then we'll take number 3 and do the same. Now with number 4, we'll take out those centers, but we're also going to cut out the center section. Again, this is number 4. Now we want to trace that onto this. We want to trace this section onto the deck. I put mine over to one side so that I only have to make one cut and I don't have to cut both. But if you want to just center it and cut on both sides, you can. Okay, I should have first cut these off, but that's okay. Okay, after you've got all those cut out, we'll sand the inside of that smooth. Now that you have that nice and smooth, then lay it on your piece of decking, trace it, and cut it out. Now you want to make sure that it fits in there good and snug. Okay, that fits perfect. So I just had to file it a little bit. Now you may be asking, why is that not cut on the laser in this shape? Because you have the option of putting it on the 3rd level, on the 4th level. You could have it right below the 5th level. Now mine's too small, but if you wanted to, you could cut it the shape of number 5 so that it's only that deep from the top to the deck. I am choosing to make mine 2 levels deep. Hopefully that makes sense. But you can put the deck as high or as low as you want. Okay, now we'll take number 5. And we'll cut out the center and all these little extra tabs. Okay, so we have the bottom. We have number 2, number 3, number 4, which we completely cut out the center and the little tabs and made it smooth. Our deck fits in there and rests on level number 3. And then we put on level number 5. Next, I'm going to use a manila folder, and you could use a thin piece of cardboard, even cardboard from, say, a cereal box. And I'm going to make a trim that goes around the top edge. And I'll show you on the prototype here what I'm talking about. But this blue trim that goes around the top is actually just a manila folder. So it's just a thin cardboard. Now you wouldn't have to, you could just paint the top edge of the hull and leave it. I like having the little extra piece on there. So as you can see, I grabbed it, flipped it upside down. We'll trace it and then cut it out. This part is not in the kit just to try to keep the cost of the kit down. And like I said, it's not really necessary. You could just paint the top edge a different color and it would look fine. So I've got it traced. And now we'll just cut it out. And I found it's easiest if we cut the center out first. Okay, next we're going to glue all the layers together. Now you want to keep the back of the boat pretty flat. So keep that in mind when you're gluing them together. You can make the back of the boat perfectly flat or a little bit of an angle. I put mine at a little bit of an angle. I don't know if you can see that. You definitely want to make sure you look at it from all angles. Make sure that it's... You pretty much want to center each piece on there and then make sure that your back side is somewhat flat. Now we want to be a little bit more careful with gluing the next two pieces. We don't want the glue seeping out on the inside because it would show. So we're just dabbing it, kind of making it as even as possible. And make sure that it's nice and centered. Okay, so our back is at a slight angle. Okay, next what we have to do is sand the sides and make them nice and smooth. To sand the sides of the boat, I'm going to use my Dremel tool. And as you can see, I have a sanding bit in there. So I'm just going to run it back and forth over the sides to make them nice and smooth, so that it ends up looking like this. Now you can see I actually left some of the texture, some of the edge of the wood, so that you could actually see the individual boards. I actually decided not to use my Dremel tool because I thought, well, a lot of you may not have a Dremel tool to build this. So I just used a regular flat file and just started filing the sides. Now I probably have 15-20 minutes in this so far. I think I may do some more on it to try to get this even a little bit more smoother. You could actually take some wood putty if you wanted to and fill that if you want it perfectly smooth. Fill in any little cracks and then sand it again. Okay, so I just put together a second boat and filed it all by hand. And I set my timer and it took me 20 minutes. Now if you had an electric sander, I'm sure it would speed things up, or even a belt sander. Within a couple minutes you would be done. So, but just by using a flat file by hand, it took me 20 minutes. Okay, now we'll get these painted and then get our decks put in place. And again, we have our trim that after we get our trim painted, then we'll put that on too. But this is where we're at so far. Okay, I'm going to use light buttermilk. You'll notice I went pretty thick with the paint. And then very lightly, I just brush this direction. By putting it on thick, going up and down like this, it fills in some of those cracks. Now we have our little hatches that are on the top, and I'm just filing the sides of them, and then we'll paint the sides white. Now if you're really into boats and you want it to be accurate, once it's dried, you can sand it smooth and then put a second coat of white over it. Now you can keep sanding it and put 5 coats until you get it really smooth. You could put a gloss coat or use a gloss white to make the sides really smooth and a little bit shiny. As most of you know, I go for more of a rustic look, and I'm not too concerned about it being realistic. Okay, so next what I did was I took my file and dragged it this direction, just on the upper part. Now the reason I'm doing that, we're going to put a stain on it, but you can see that it roughs it up right along the top. So I actually put back in the pieces. So actually on 3 and 4, you wouldn't have to pop those out because it makes for a nice gluing surface for that. So I don't have instructions. So I'm building this as I go, and so I'm doing this so that it will be easier for you to build these boats. Now we'll get this glued in, and then we can start to paint it. Want to make sure you clean up any extra glue. I think it's easier to glue the deck in first and then stain it because it's pretty thin and chances are it would warp. Now that it's all glued down, there's no chance of it warping, and you can stain that or whatever wood color that you want to. Okay, next we're going to take some Mississippi mud and burnt sienna. We may grab some other colors too, but this will be a good starting point. Okay, so it's mostly the Mississippi mud and a little bit of the burnt sienna to warm it up. And you can see my water is pretty dirty. It's pretty gray. We'll add quite a bit of burnt sienna to this one, really warm it up. Okay, now we'll go with straight Mississippi mud and paint the inside. Okay, we'll let these dry, and then we can come back in maybe with some sandpaper if we want to get some more of the raw wood showing. And then if you wanted to, you could just paint the edge a color. But I cut out these little templates, these little trim pieces, and we'll paint these and glue these on. Okay, so you want to make sure these are centered on there with an even amount of overhang, except on the back. You want the back to be flush. Okay, so I've got the little hatches stained. So we'll set that aside and move on to painting everything that is a color. Okay, so I'm going to use light avocado, and then I'm going to mix Blue Harbor with turquoise blue. So one boat will have green trim and one boat will have blue trim. But first I'm going to wash my hands and get some clean water for my brushes, and then we'll get started. Okay, again I am using light avocado. And we're going to want to paint both sides of the top and all of the pieces, because it's open in the center and you can see through it. Okay, so I've changed my mind on the blue because I didn't want it to match the one I've already got done. So I'm using desert turquoise and sea breeze. Okay, all of our parts are dry. Let's get our trim glued on. I did want to mention, after the parts all dried, I put a very thin wash of raw umber, a lot of water, and just did a thin wash over all these parts and all these parts and the trim, just to tone down the color a little bit. Okay, now we'll get our trim glued on. Okay, so I've got the little cabins glued together. And this one, I actually cut the roof short. You can see, I'll line up the fronts. I cut it just a little bit shorter. This one, I'm going to drill a hole and I'm going to put a smokestack. So we'll put a smokestack on this one. This one, I cut the top shorter so that we can slide it back just a little bit. And that gets put in there. And then in the front, I'm going to put a mast in the front. Possibly one back here. Put some rope on it. It's not going to be accurate. I'm not too concerned about making it look like an actual boat, but it'll just give it some character and it'll make the three boats look very different. Okay, so I've got my hole cut, and I'm just using a black drinking straw. I want it to be a little bit at an angle, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to cut the end of this at a little bit of an angle. Okay, I think that looks good. Okay, let's get the cabin glued in place. Okay, I put two little marks where I want it. Just making sure that it's straight. Okay, and we'll get our little, we'll wait on that hatch. Let's paint our smokestack. I think I'm going to paint it using raw umber. Okay, our smokestack is all dry, and now we're going to glue it in place. And then we're going to put a little bit of super on the back side of it. Okay, there it is. Okay, now we'll get our little hatch glued in place. Next, we're going to get our little railings glued on the top. Now they have a little extra tab on them. I am actually going to cut that tab off. Okay, now we'll get some tweezers. I'm looking to see what side looks the best to me. I am actually going to use super glue. Okay, we'll just hold it there for a little bit. Okay, now we'll get it glued on the other side. You may have to bend them a little bit to straighten them out. Okay, we'll just hold it there. Well, as you can see, I have been getting a ton of work done. Let me show you up close. I've really been having a lot of fun with this one. And this is completely made up. This is not accurate at all. I just wanted to give the overall feel of a boat that someone has maybe completely built themselves or just added to. Now the detail parts are from Seaport Model Works and rustyrail.com. All of the detail parts that you get in the kit are from Seaport Model Works, and if you visit their website, they have a lot more. And they have some really incredible model boats on their website. So be sure to visit Seaport Model Works. Let me see if I have. Okay, so next I have to add the tires hanging just like I did here. And I need to add some fabric to represent sails. And what I'm using is toilet paper. It really doesn't take much at all. So just wad up a piece. I'll show you on one of these. And then we're going to paint this with water and Elmer's glue. And then we'll simply glue it on there like that. And we'll do that on both sides. You can see my water is a little dirty that I'm using. And that's okay. We don't want it to be a pure white. I'm just kind of shaping it a little bit. Okay, now we'll let that one sit and dry. I want to scrunch it together almost like an accordion fold. But it doesn't have to be perfect, just scrunch it together. You're going to want to use a brand new blade for this. If it's dull at all, it will just tear the toilet paper. Now, sometimes it just doesn't work the first time you do it. This one is giving me problems, but so I may have to start over. Okay, let's see if we can make this one work. If not, I'll have to start over. Okay, we'll let both of these dry and then glue them on. Okay, for the tires, to get that string wrapped around there, I first, on the back side, put a drop of super glue at the top of the tire, and then lay a piece of string on there. I did 2 of them here. So again, this is the back side. Now we drop the other end through the center and wrap it around, drop it back through the center, and we'll do this 3 or 4 times. Want to make sure they're all bunched together at the top. Okay, now we've got some put a dab of super glue on the back side. Sorry, my super glue is getting low. Taking a while to come out. Okay. I'll get this one done and then we'll glue them on the side. Now, I will admit I'm kind of cheating. On these, it hangs over, which is a nice look. It took quite a bit of work to glue that in. Possibly if you did it before you put in your little hatch in the cabin, it might be easier. But on this, I'm simply going to take my tires and glue them onto the side. Okay, so I've got them glued on. Now if you want, you can put a thin wash of gray or brownish gray over that thread so it's not so white. And you can dry brush a little bit of gray over those tires. Let me find a gray. We'll do that real quick. Okay, getting most of the gray off. I'm dry brushing right over the rope. Alright, now we'll do this one, and I think that'll be it. Okay, these are finished. There is so many great possibilities with these boats. You could add netting, hanging, more rope, little buoys. You could add as many details as you'd want. You could play around with different color schemes. Have some with the sails that are down. There's just so many possibilities. They are so fun to build. The only thing I will say is that it does take some patience to sand the sides. And if you have a belt sander or an electric hand sander, it would speed things up, definitely. But if you don't, it can be done with a hand file. And as you can see, it doesn't have to be perfectly smooth. I like having the texture that shows that's made of different boards.
I hope you enjoyed today's video. I had so much fun putting these 3 boats together. And I hope it inspired you to maybe get a little creative with your next project. If you'd like to order one of the kits, please visit carolinacraftsmankits.com. I think it's an incredible value for the price, and as you can see, there's a lot of possibilities with it. Well, don't forget to subscribe to the channel, and thank you so much for watching. And until next time, happy modeling, everyone.